Okay, we're going to start with talking about your mindset going into the holidays, into different social situations and food scenes, because if you don't have your mind in the right place before you go into them, it's very easy to kind of spiral out of control, especially if that's where you're at in your journey with food, where everything feels very triggering and you kind of deal with the quote unquote screw it mentality. And I dealt with that for so many years. It was like when I would be so well intentioned going into the holidays or going into, a social situation. I would have a game plan of what I wanted to do or not do or eat or not eat. But then when I got there, it was like I just would mentally check out and I would have this screw it mentality. And so I want to talk about this concept of the Last Supper mentality and what it actually does to our brain and how it makes us super compulsive and how we can avoid having that. So essentially, when you go into a food situation or when you go into the holidays, it's really important to understand what it's all about. We get so stressed about staying on plan and on track with food that we forget the whole reason that this time of year or a special event or a social setting or situation should be enjoyed, or what the purpose of it is. So I think it's really important if we can set our mind in that spot before we walk in. So for me, going into the holidays, I really like to think about how present I want to be and how there for my family and my friends I want to be. I don't want to be distracted or overwhelmed with food anxiety or food fear, which thankfully, since I've done the work to rewire my brain, I don't deal with that anymore. But I remember being in that spot where the anxiety that I would have going in was sometimes so overwhelming that it would take away so much of just the time I had with my loved ones. And I think back on how much time I missed out, how many memories I missed out because I was so consumed worrying about food or getting my workout in or whatever it was. And if you're anything like me, you don't want to wake up when you're 80 years old, 90 years old and think, man, I wasted so much time worrying about, shrinking in size or staying on plan or getting my workout in or not eating all the food or whatever it is. So, think about this before you go into the holidays. And I'm going to give you guys throughout the other videos in this series, I'm going to give you so many tangible tips and techniques and strategies so that you can set yourself up for success. But I want to talk about the Last Supper mentality. So essentially, the Last Supper mentality is this idea that, this is the only time that I can have all of these foods. So I might as well eat as much of it as I can right now, because I know that tomorrow or Monday or whatever it is, or the next meal, I have to get back on track. You're like, it's quote unquote your last supper. And so what ends up happening in the brain, and I'm not going to go too much into the science of it because that would make this really long, but essentially our lower area of our brain, the primal area of our brain, it sends us those signals, those impulses to eat when we're hungry. And so anytime we're in a diet and we have restricted our calories, we're in a calorie restricted state, that lower area of our brain sends us those impulses to eat, those strong impulses to eat. And this was really, really important back when we were in the hunter and gatherer and caveman days, because if we didn't have that survival mechanism in our brain sending us impulses to eat that, got us out of our cave and prompted us to go and find and kill food so that we could eat and survive, we would have died off as a human race a long time ago. So that area of our brain, that primal area of our brain, is an important mechanism. But today, in most modern societies, we have an abundance of food. And so when we restrict calories for the purpose of weight loss, while we know that's the purpose that we're restricting calories, our lower brain, that primal area of our brain, it doesn't know that. So it's sending us impulses to eat. And that's why dieting is so stinking hard, right? It's so hard because we're getting those primal we're fighting our body's biology. It's sending us those impulses to go eat. Now, that same kind of impulse that you experience when you're dieting and when you feel hungry, that similar type of thing can happen when you have the Last Supper mentality. And here's why. When you go into Thanksgiving dinner or a girls' night out or whatever it is, you're going out to a nice restaurant or you're just, kicking back for your birthday or whatever it is, when you go into those situations and you tell yourself, okay, I only want to have this, or I'm just going to let loose today. So for example, if you go in and you tell yourself, you know what, this is my day to cheat. This is my cheat day. I'm going to go in and, everything's going to be fine. I'll get back on track tomorrow and I'm just going to relax. What ends up happening is that we have all this internal built up pressure. And this is something that I teach the women that I work with is our internal environments become so built up with pressure through dieting and through judging our food choices, through feeling guilt with what we do with food, through feeling shame when we binge or whatever it might be, that when we decide to ease off the gas and decide for a day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, whatever it is, a party, when we decide for a moment that we're going to just relax, it's literally like our internal environment is this highly pressurized carbonated soda bottle, for example, that the lid has been screwed on really tight, and through dieting and through judging ourselves and our food choices, it's like it just continues to build. The pressure builds inside of us. And so when we go to just ease off the gas for a day, it's like we literally unscrew this highly pressurized soda bottle. And it's like, right? It blows everywhere. All this pressure comes out. And what ends up happening is it feels like this super slippery slope that we go down, because we might go into the holiday food scene or a social food scene with good intentions. Like, yeah, we're going to enjoy a little, we're going to indulge a little. But what happens when you get there and you have one bite of something that you normally wouldn't, and it just starts to spiral out of control? It's literally like you've allowed pressure to start coming out of this highly pressurized soda bottle, and it just blows everywhere. And so what's happening in that moment is it's like this Last Supper mentality of thinking, okay, I'm going to go in and I can only enjoy, today, because tomorrow I have to get back on track. And that type of thinking, we know that there's a perceived kind of famine coming up. If you think way back to the primal or the caveman era, right? It was like feast and famine. We'd go and hunt and we'd kill and we'd feast, and then there'd be a famine, and then we'd go and hunt again. And so in our brain, when we go into these situations, these social situations or holiday food scenes, we literally are like feast mode, because we know there's a famine coming up. But if we don't have that mindset of, I can only enjoy this food today and then I have to get right back on plan tomorrow, if you always give yourself unconditional permission to eat, the craziest thing happens. And that is your brain stops, like the shiny, glossy allure and compulsive feeling we have towards food begins to dissipate. When you tell yourself you could have pumpkin pie and, brownies and ice cream every single day forever and never judge yourself, guess what would start to happen? You would start to not want that thing. The compulsion towards that thing gets less and less. The moment we tell ourselves we can't have something, what happens? We want that thing like 10 times more. And so if we can set up our mindset without labeling food as good or bad, and when we go into these social settings, these dinners, these holiday situations, whatever, if you can go in and not have that mindset, the Last Supper mentality that I've got to feast and eat everything right now because, tomorrow or Monday is the diet starts again, it releases some of that pressure and some of that compulsion and that impulsivity to kind of just go overboard. So we have to set our minds up knowing that, hey, we can have this whenever we want, we can enjoy this food whenever we want. And I know that it feels scary, but here's the truth. If you're wanting to get to this place of balance, it is a process of continually releasing all this built up internal pressure that's been built up over time. And so the journey feels really scary when you you unscrew the bottle top for a day or whatever, and it's like blowing out and it feels like a slippery slope that you're never going to stop. It's like, I'm never going to stop eating unless I have this, this white knuckle grip of control on food. But the reality is that cycle right there, that cycle is keeping you stuck, and that internal pressure is keeping you stuck. And the more you allow it to come out, that in-between phase of getting from kind of dieting and binging and this white knuckle control on food to this beautiful place of balance, eating intuitively, and just having this natural and effortless relationship with food, that in-between phase feels like you're spiraling out of control. But I want you to know that if you continue to allow pressure to come out, eventually balance settles. And I remember the very first time I heard the term intuitive eating, you guys, I literally laughed out loud. I thought to myself, yeah, right. If I tried to eat intuitively and listen to my hunger and fullness cues, my intuition would tell me, like, it would have me be elbow deep in a tub of ice cream every night. Like, yeah, right, I can't trust myself. I lived this reality for a decade. Diet, binge, emotional eat, overeat, these cycles, like blowing it on the holidays, blowing it on any occasion that was traveling or home alone at night or whatever it was. Like, I remember being in this place, and I know how tough the holidays can be. And like I said, I'm going to give you some tangible tips, but I just want to let you know, going in with a mindset of, don't try to stay on plan. Like, enjoy. Give yourself permission to eat any of the foods there. I'm going to talk about how to do that in balance in some of the upcoming videos, but the mindset has to not be, oh, I can't have that, I can only have this, because what happens after your willpower fatigues and you're there for a half an hour or an hour, and then you're just like, screw it, and you end up going 10 times harder on the food because you told yourself you couldn't have it. So the impulsion to have it is like 10 times higher. So I hope that helps you with mindset going into social situations and holidays. That's really, really important. And in the next video, we're going to talk about some tangibles, but mindset, not having the Last Supper mentality, giving yourself unconditional permission to eat will actually reduce some of that impulsive feeling. So I hope this was helpful, and I will catch you guys in the next video.